This podcast is part of the No Phony Podcast Network, the home of independent awesomeness.
Welcome back to another episode of Deluxe Edition, the podcast where we dig into classic pop culture, yada, yada, yada. And I'm here, as always, with the man, Casey Shearer, who has turned 40 today.
Hey, Bill. How you doing, buddy?
Happy
the big
birthday.
4-0.
Big 4-0. Everything changes now.
That's what you keep telling me, but...
Everything starts to drip. Everything starts to just got to go downhill. But enjoy your 40s.
Hey, this has been one of the best years of my life so far, leading up to 40. So
this has been the best year in a pandemic. This has been one of your best years. Glad that you're having a good one.
Fuck the pandemic, bro.
Well, why is it one of your best years?
Just everything financially. Got a successful podcast going here with my good buddy Bill. We interviewed some major stars this year, and our interview that we're leading up to right now is probably one of my favorites. So, yeah, I think, definitely 39 was pretty damn good, man.
Yeah, sounds like it was pretty good for you. Awesome. I want to do a little bit of house cleaning, talking about our podcast. So you may have noticed that we've been off for a couple weeks. Let's tell them why, Casey. So it does happen, like anything in the world. You set up some of these interviews, you set up any kind of appointment. Once in a while, things get confused. Sometimes the guest doesn't show up. Sometimes we just get ghosted and we never hear from the guest again. Victor Miller. But, we had a period where we kind of had an empty week. So Casey came up with this awesome idea. He said, why don't we do the why don't we take some of like the highlights of our shows and just kind of release them on YouTube? You named them Quick Bites. And yeah, we've been making these little quick bite videos. I think they're, pretty cool. So a good idea came out of the fact that we were having trouble scheduling. So nice work there. Everybody go check out the Quick Bites. Casey's doing a great job at selecting good clips. Yeah,
they're going to be coming more frequently too. I was thinking that the other day in my hotel room. I'm like, what? Oh shit, I should be cutting up some of these quick bites here. Well, I didn't have anything to do. So there's more on the way.
Who do we have up so far?
We have Larry Hankin, Scott Schwartz, Mark Singer, and Burt Ward.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have a great interview today, Case. I don't know how you got this guy. I really don't. One of my all-time favorite actors. Like you told me, you're like, hey, man, Tom Skerritt's going to talk with us. It's like, holy shit. You don't have to do any research on Tom Skerritt. Like everybody knows Tom Skerritt. What's your favorite Tom Skerritt movie?
Mine, personally? Cheech and Chong, Up in Smoke.
See, I go between.
If you consider, do you consider that really though a Tom Skerritt movie? He plays a short 5-minute part in it. That's my favorite maybe cameo of Tom Skerritt.
What about in Ted? That was a good one. Do you remember it?
I don't, honestly, no. I saw Ted maybe one time a long time ago.
They got a great part where there's a guy who he works with Mark Wahlberg, and he's like, yeah, I'm friends with Tom Skerritt. And like, he just can't stop talking about how cool Tom Skerritt is. Like a great cameo. A lot of people love him in Top Gun. I love Alien. That's how I became aware of him. And then it's just he's one of them guys that you're watching movies in the 80s. And if it was a great movie, Tom Skerritt was in it.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom really loved the show Picket Fences. I remember my mom always talking about Tom Skerritt in the show Picket Fences.
Yeah. Just iconic. So you're going to see when this Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, when it starts, you can see like I'm visibly nervous. I'm like, humming, when Tom shows up. Tom is 87. Tom is as funny and friendly as you would expect him to be. We did have a little bit of an issue with Zoom at times. Sometimes sound was a little bit of an issue. We tried to fix it as much as we can. The internet is the internet. And towards the end, we just lost video with Tom. So I think there's times where the interview might sound a little bit choppy, but it's just, that's how Zoom unfortunately gave it to us. So we did the best we could with editing. Yeah, it might be a little bit hard to hear at times, but I'm telling you, like, he's got the best stories. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, Tom's still a great storyteller, and this is like I said. I keep saying this for every one. This is my favorite one. They just keep getting better. I mean, it's Tom fucking Skerritt, man.
Right on. Well, why don't you do the plugs and we'll get right to the interview.
All right, so yeah, we changed things up with this one too. We know we always ask for fan questions on our Facebook group, so head over to Facebook. It's Deluxe Edition, yet another pop culture podcast, the group. And we're always posting about fan questions in there. But we set something up in this one, and our good friend Kyle Patton helped us out to show you how you can do it. If you go over to patreon.com/Deluxe Edition Pod, you can sign up over there, and you can actually personally ask a question on the podcast. If you send us a video, sign up over there, send us a video, and we'll play it for the guest so you can personally ask the guest your question. And so we're on Twitter, Instagram. We have a website of our own, deluxeedition.show. And I think that's all of them, Bill.
Yeah, and if you forget all these addresses, just go to deluxeedition.show. It's basically a hub for everything that we have.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, happy 40th, Casey.
Thank you, Bill.
And let's get on with the interview.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Weezy. Nothing like a good piece of ass.
And thanks for inviting me, by the way.
Thank you for coming. I mean, we are gigantic fans. So, if we're going to try not to be starstruck, but we're a little starstruck. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, me too. Seeing you guys for the first time.
Yeah, you're starstruck. Thanks so much. So I'm going to ask you about Evergreen.
Oh, yeah. This is, God, how do I start? It's really the new video world, really. Video media. There is no practical use for, to say film, for example, is something in the history. We don't use film anymore. It's video now. And it just has created a whole new approach to what we're doing in film. I live in Seattle, so I'm quite apart from where I lived for so many years, where I made a living, and moved up here about 30 years ago to Seattle, and I find this is a very vibrant film community. It needs to move on. It needs to move on to the level that we're working at, which is being able to deliver content to the whole Northwest sector, which is Oregon, Idaho, Washington, and British Columbia, and some of the wonderful Canadian videos that have not been distributed here. So we have about 150 hours of just flat-out entertainment, uplifting, imaginative stuff for our audience, which is over the Stirr app. Evergreen channel is on Stirr app. I hope I made sense out of all of that. It's really a worthwhile. It's just a load of variety of stuff, of adventurous, imaginative stuff. Guys up in Bellingham, for example, 5 of them who didn't know each other before, and they were all reconciled and made up with each other when they started working on a motorcycle made out of scrap metal that was going to break the world's land speed record in Salt Lake City. So they haven't quite finished it, but those ideas of that and Chihuly glass, when he first started making glass years ago, and then video on that, it's quite a variety. So fishing, great fishing rivers from Idaho to the Pacific. It's just loaded with all of this stuff. a lot of good material on shelves that never get distributed. So we've been able to access that.
Was the vision to really bring the talent, the filmmakers in your area and expose them to the world, or was it just more of exposing the talent of that area to that area?
Evergreen is national. We have between 2 to 5 million. We're fairly new in our distribution and numbers, so all of the information isn't quite there yet, but the potential could go that high, 5 million people nationwide.
Are you more of a mentor, or are you actually helping to produce some of the films?
Well, we're mentored right now. To produce the films, you got to have quite a bit of money. But we felt that why put the money out now? Because we also work at a very $1.98 level. Quality exceeds that. But all the available films that are not being seen or never have been seen or never distributed or won't get any exhibition whatsoever, so they won't be recognized for the work they're doing, individual filmmakers. And we split, we have an ad-based channel, so we are able to split revenue with them. And all of this is just new, but that's the basis of it, is that this is Northwest Corridor. All of these states are up here in the Northwest area that have these filmmakers available. So I guess it's a mentorship. I call it a business.
Did you move to that area and you were amazed by the talent there that you just said, hey, I need to expose this?
I moved up here 30 years ago and was aware by a lot of incoming films from Hollywood at that point. And that's when I really saw what was going on here. It was pretty exciting. The grunge music scene was still cooking. All those bands were together. And I guess Pearl Jam was the only one that remained out of it in a very positive way. I mean, they're still relevant. But it was the matter of the dealing with the film community as excited as it was to be able to embrace incoming productions. There was no incentive, and British Columbia had an incentive, and that made a difference. So they wound up going up to Canada. And we are now in a situation of making that transition from inviting Hollywood to come and shoot here when we know it's going to go to Vancouver. Why don't we do our own work? Why don't we begin to know how to tell a good story on film by working on the material to the extent that you wind up with pretty good material, and then you can ask local people to invest in these films. A lot of investors get very hesitant, as you might imagine, about doing something like that. So we just take our own money as best we can, and what few investments we were able to get we just started just prior to COVID, by the way. So the investments were there prior to that and held up by COVID, which is now still an issue. We have to deal with the reluctance of anyone to do much of anything that's insecure, especially putting money out, an investment in a new company like this. And the approach is quite different. Going on an app and putting it out that way on our own channel, Evergreen, evrgrn. Well, who's done that before? So it's all that we got to pound the nails and to really make sure this thing stays together. And that's what we're in the process of doing.
The way that the world has changed, the way that the internet is really, especially in the last 10 years, just dominated people's attention. I think you're onto something really, smart here.
Yeah, well, I emphasize it's got to be positive and it's got to be imaginative. That's the one thing that tends to, in the Northwest, people tend to write those films and make films here that are not so happy. They're often depressing, and that's difficult to sit through in this time and place. So if you have something that's tickling your imagination in a positive way, we've succeeded. And that's basically what the 150 hours is. It's delightful. It's really delightful.
Where can people find the Evergreen channel?
Stirr app, STIRR, all caps. You can get the app for nothing. So Stirr app is owned by a larger Sinclair broadcasting company, which is the second most nationwide network. And with the Evergreen the way it is, you're able to really select particular specific little short films or long films for that matter, because we do have some feature-length secondary films that are there that are worth watching. They're all positive, basically. I want to emphasize that. So I think that's pretty much what we are, is that kind of positive thing that you should be going to look at when you want to watch television, because it's going to pick you up.
Sure. Is Redwood Highway one of the movies on there?
I believe that is one. I had done work for that guy. I forgot his Michael was the producer on that, and I forgot about that film until our CEO, Leslie Grandy, has been going through all this, sorting out that which works and that which does not work. That's one film she came up with, was that. And a voiceover I did on another one of the great rivers, fishing rivers from Idaho to the Pacific Ocean. Quite a variety.
I watched Redwood Highway the other day. Great movie. Do you remember where that burl place was that your character? Is that obviously that's a real place somewhere?
Well, all I remember about this, now I've done a lot of work, so I tend to, that's a job, and you don't, unless you're doing some of those other films that are not classic, what you remember, because there's something that brings you into it more. But I was doing favors or working with her a day or two on some of these films in the local area, and in the whole Northwest, different Oregon and Idaho, that sort of thing. So that specific film was down by middle of Oregon. There's a road highway that goes to all the way to the Pacific from I-5. So it's that road that she's talking about, that hiking, getting out of convalescent home and walking there, get to the Pacific Ocean as quickly as you can, and as a person who's living in a convalescent home. So that's very optimistic.
Yeah, that was a great movie. Yeah, well, I travel for work, so I want to see if I can find that place that your character owned in that movie. That was a cool place.
Yeah, it was. Oh, particularly that particular store, that great. God, all the carvings that guy had, and extraordinary carving out of the forest.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so we'll get into some more fan questions here. Patty Prundi wants to know, is there anyone that you've previously worked with that if you heard they were in a new project and they requested you, it would be an automatic yes, no questions asked?
Well, these are films that you're talking about we did up here, where they asked me if I'd do them a favor and get involved, and I liked the material enough to get involved for a couple of days. But otherwise, I've worked, in the beginning, I should flash back to the beginning, because I started mentoring with a TV director who lived in the neighborhood as a filmmaker. And I did a few TV shows for him, and I thought he was an interesting guy, and I stuck with him for a few years until he finally called up one day and said, "Hey, you got a film to direct, and I'd like to be in it. And it's called Match." So I was mentoring right from the beginning. I was spoiled with Robert Altman, and then Hal Ashby, who did Hell More Than Being There, and then Ridley Scott. They all asked for me to get involved. And so there is that, where they asked me to be in the film. In other words, I didn't have to audition for them.
Has there ever been a scenario where you said, "Yep, I'll be in your movie," and you really didn't know what the movie was about? You're just doing it for a friend?
Oh, well, yeah. Up in Smoke. I don't know if you ever saw.
Of course we have, certainly. It's a great one.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we have some questions about Up in Smoke.
yeah. Well, I ran into them in Westwood, just dropped into Westwood. We got talking, and I said, "Hey, we're going to do this movie next week. Why don't you fall by and play Strawberry?" And sure. Without checking it out, I just thought, this is fun.
That's great. So while we're on the subject of that, yeah, we got a bunch of fan questions about that. So we'll kind of wrap it into one. You already told us about how you got the gig. So what was the backstory on Strawberry? Like, how did you come up with that? Or was it something they came up with?
It was just there. It's what they wrote. bless his heart, the manager put the money up for it, a couple $1 million through Adler. So that's basically all I know. It's just that I just said, yeah, let's do this. And the one thing it was outrageously funny to do, that whole idea of you never get out of a car you never leave a car that's got a lot of smoke in it for a reason. There's no fire there, anything but that, right? But geez, that was funny. That was a very successful film financially for them. So otherwise, it was just no doubt this is going to be fun. I remember one of the things that I did take away. There are certain things that you take away from not so much the action of the film, but just had conversations with the neighborhoods you go to and the people you meet outside of the film business. Is really what I found always rewarding. I worked in Italy for a long time doing films that way. But I remember we were sitting out one day in the front, taking in the sun. My house was. I said something on. He's saying, "Yeah, it's really nice just for being able to relax like this." I said, "Yeah, isn't it so?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "The beach roofing for a living." That's and I've always taken that as my byword. Is how's it like working in the business that I'm in? I'm just saying, well, man, it beats roofing. I've done a little bit of that, so I know what it was. It beats roofing.
Hey, guess what I did for what I've been doing for 20 years? Roofing.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Casey's
I was.
waiting for Casey's waiting for his big break. He wants to get into Hollywood next.
I was.
You're on the road.
A residential roofer for 15 years, and now for the last 4, I've been just flying around and inspecting roofs. So my job has gotten a little bit easier over the last few years.
You're working your way up.
Yeah, finally.
Or down, actually.
It's
down to the
much higher than a roof.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
Tough job.
Yeah, it is. So, all right, that's great, man. Any more Cheech and Chong stories you want to share?
No, just that one with Cheech. Cheech and I were playing a lot during that. Tommy was always a little bit kind of looking the other direction. He had that inclination. A lot of, whoa, man, what's that? There's nothing there, Tommy. Yes, there is, man. You're just not looking hard enough. All of that I love that. Just that was the sillies back there in the early 70s. Really the sillies, and be able to work with Hal Ashby and Harold and Maude, learn how to edit, learn how to tell a story well.
When we were saying that you were coming on the show, there was a lot of people that were like, "Yeah, Strawberry," and I thought, wow, of all the movies you've done, that was surprising. And I love, many of your movies. I definitely love your character in that movie. But were you surprised by the success of that? Are you surprised that people still remember you as Strawberry?
No, I immediately mentoring with Robert Altman taught me a whole lot about business and about how to tell a story well and how to take the risk of possibilities. So I sensed that MASH was going to be a big hit. The studio hated it. Turned out Bob and I were right about it. We had a very strong feeling about it. I knew how he would edit the film because he had an entourage of unrelated films that he shot for that became relevant in the course of it. He had 3 cameras, at the time about 8 microphones scattered everywhere. So he's picking up all of this stuff. And I had a great sense that this was going to be quite an interesting film. And the studio wanted to fire him at one moment, and the writer of the screenplay wanted to have his name removed from it and all of that. And he wound up winning the Academy Award for writing it. But it's all that ironic stuff that I was learning right from the beginning from guys like Altman and Hal Ashby, the delightfulness that they had about how they went about their work and the total lack of reserve about whether they would inflame the studio executives. And I'm not ever faulting studio executives. They just sometimes get involved in something that they don't quite understand, as we do with business, creative people, same thing. So the oil and water thing always seems to work out in the end when it's successful for everybody. And Harold Maude is the same kind of thing. I remember Hal reading a script and sharing it with me and saying that this is going to be a successful film only as long as it lasts for the next 20, 30 years. It'll be a classic, you know. Which it turned out it was it still is somewhat of an inside film to look at, given the topic of it. But yeah, what they left with me, what they gave me, those two guys in particular, is really a lot of what I'm trying to give to Evergreen as a writer, as a filmmaker, as a director. And by the way, as an actor, it's just simply what I gave to this company is really what I got from all of these guys, including Scott, who I followed around every day on the set to see how and why he was doing certain things. He had his eye to the camera all the time. He was shooting the camera. He was composing objects to give it depth, to give it composition, that sort of thing. So all of this is really what I have potentially to bring to this community up here in Seattle and to really make Evergreen Channel successful. It's going to take time for people to understand we're not talking about Hollywood anymore. We're talking about the approach to new media, iPads, iPhones, home entertainment. That's basically where it is. It's not in the theaters anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to download the app as soon as we're finished here because, like I said, I travel all the time. So there's a lot of stuff on there that I want to check out. All right. So we'll get back into some more fan questions here. Adam Davis wants to know, what's the biggest role that you've ever passed on?
Well, the only thing I can come to mind with is years ago, I had signed on to do a film up in Canada. It was a nice script and all of that. And about 2 weeks before I was going to be shooting that film, Robert Redwood called me to ask me to play in a wonderful film, won the Academy Award he won for directing it, Ordinary People. And Donald Sutherland, who I worked with, of course, in MASH, did the role because I had signed to do this thing up in Canada, this other film. So that was, since that wound up being the best film, that itself was one of the best film that year. It wasn't, the other film I was doing in Canada, I don't even know if it was released yet. So quite different. That was the only one I would say offhand. Otherwise, I really loved that idea of being in Top Gun. It was with Tony, who was Ridley Scott's brother. He was going to direct, Tony was going to direct, and I thought, well, I really love the way these guys work. I love their work as a painting, and they're truly film artists. So that one I thought to do Top Gun, but Ordinary People was something I wish I had done. But that's okay. It's only conversation. No regrets.
Have you ever worked on a movie and while you were there, you're thinking, this is terrible. I wish I didn't take this.
Oh, yeah, I don't even remember the names of them, so I can get away with it. Oh, yes. Again, most of those, and I did a couple of them in Italy, really, I knew they weren't going to be, at that time I was somewhat of a name that could conceivably be part of helping to distribute the films in America, but that was not something I could see, given what we were doing, how it was going along. It was not about the film. It was really about the place and the people. Again, the experiences you have of being in obscure places in Sicily, ruins of a Greek village 2,000 years ago that you come across, and a variety of just history everywhere. People are the product of that. So it was just on of being all through Italy from one film to another that I can't remember, nor have I seen any of them. And it doesn't matter. It was a great experience, and everything I have done that had location on it really was more about what the film, that was more important than how the film was going to turn out, because clearly I had some reservations about those films. And that wasn't really about that. It's how you make a living. I make a working being hired as an actor, so there's nothing to regret. There's just nothing to regret about any of this.
That's great. So you mentioned Top Gun, so let's go down that route. Blade Runner 1983 wants to know, which one did you enjoy making more, Alien or Top Gun?
That's a tough question. They're two different things, in two different kinds of places. I mean, you're working, Alien was a script that I got that it was a $2 million budget or a little less than that, and that was it. There was no director, no other actors. I was the first one that came to do that. And I didn't know that I would want to do this film, because that budget of $2 million would be basically the level of Ed Wood, who was the worst director ever in Hollywood. You just can't, you take a script like that, which is a solid story, but a $2 million budget is not going to do it. So I held off on giving any response, and meanwhile I saw The Duelist, which Ridley Scott, it was a Swiss movie, and I just got bowled over with quality, the artsmanship of it, the craftsmanship, the depth of it. And they said he's going to direct the film, and the budget was up to where it should be. And they had this wonderful, robust cast that was just impressive to me. And so I said, I'm going to jump on that ship and take off. And as far as Top Gun is concerned, I really loved the material. My agent at the time felt that I was, I didn't have enough energy. I didn't think they were hiring me for that reason, which really pissed me off. So I thought, well, yeah, okay, let me go on and talk to the producers. And I did that, and Tony Scott, and that's how it came about. But I really wanted to do that one, because not so much the role as much as working with Tony. And Tom was new. It was delightful to meet him before we did that film. So it just seemed to fit. It seemed to be what I had to do right then.
When I think about your career, I think it's really amazing that you've been in so many movies and you've had so many really unique roles that you've never been typecast. You're one of those people that can be remembered for all of these different performances, and nobody seems to blur them together. I think that's a really special thing. I think a lot of actors haven't been able to escape that sort of typecasting, but you have. I was in an English major at UCLA, and I saw Citizen Kane and said, I want to write and direct to that level. So that's where I set that was the bar I was going for. But I thought if I was going to write for an actor, I had to know what it felt like to be an actor. To get on stage in front of people and do stuff that really makes me awkward, I felt I got to challenge that awkwardness. I got to go out there and do this for myself. And I'm seeing acting in one of the plays I was doing at the time in the community, not in UCLA, but in the community. A couple of guys had seen a film, seen me acting, and they wanted me to be in a film they were doing, which had two other actors, Robert Redford and Sidney Pollack, which is where those two built their relationship from that. And in the 60s, I was very good friends with Redford. And that's how River Runs Through It ever came, was because of my relationship with him. But it's just, all of it for me. I remember reading something, a review on me. The guy said, Skerritt is a character actor in a leading man's body. It wasn't about me being a movie star. I never has that. It's such an elusive term. It's like saying weed. It just doesn't have that. It's an acting. It's about acting. And you're not yourself when you're acting.
in the sense of how you are socially. But doing acting is just throwing it all out there. And as the more you throw it, the more you gain. The more you build who you are, and the more you put in each character. So it's each character. The characters deserve more than the acting. It's what I become and how I do it. So being an actor who's popular because of personality is not really what I was going for. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
it was a great answer. Terrific answer.
Yeah.
So let's one more Top Gun question, and I think it's a question that a lot of people want to know, but we'll give it to Kyle Patton.
How you doing, Tom? Couldn't bring myself to ask you a question without wearing aviators when Top Gun was concerned, but can you tell us anything about the new movie, and are you in it? Thanks a lot.
You know, I've been asked that for over 30 years, every year. People saying, when are they going to make one? I'm not in touch with Hollywood. I'm really immersed in here, raising kids. I've got kids and grandchildren here and all of that. So that's the priority. So I've been asked over and over again, are you going to be in it? And when's it coming out? I said, first of all, I don't have no idea on any of that. It's not a question I have to deal with. So I got a call from them one day that finally they're going to make the movie, and they want me to come down for a day. And I should precede that by saying a lot of recently in the last few years, when people were asking me that question, I said the only way I'd be in the film, I'm sure, would be just simply 30 years later that they would be coming to my character's funeral. So as it happens, they asked me to come down to be at the funeral of Iceman. And that character. So I went down there for a day and was in that scene. Now, I don't think that I'll be in the film at all. It's just me and a crowd of people and being there for that funeral.
Wow. Well, we're all looking forward to the movie. It's
we all just stumble on through this stuff. All the factors. There's nothing clean cut anymore. This is not studio stuff. It's each one of us hoping that we can get a job soon.
Yeah.
And I've had, been offered, given really some terrific work to do, and I just feel like I'm a very lucky man. Though nobody may know who I am because I do different characters. I'm not identified as Sean Connery would be with 007. That he'll always. It's wonderful as an actor, as he was. That's the character. James Bond. James Bond.
Well, I've heard you say, I've listened to a few of your interviews in the last couple of weeks, and I've heard you say that over and over, you consider yourself a lucky man. But, you say that Sean Connery is remembered for that James Bond role, but think about this. You're remembered for so many different roles, and you might not believe it, but a lot of people do know Tom Skerritt.
I'm finding that out. I got a heap of email over there that I have to tend to, and my wife says, you don't need to do all those. I said, yes, I do, darling. These people put some effort into putting these photographs together, purchase them, and somehow or another found out my box number, and so I did it that way. But it's a big responsibility doing what we do, Sean. It's the most influential of all media. So damn it, do the work you can. Do the best work you can. That's the best work you can find. But I learned very early on when I was at UCLA how to read a screenplay and how to feel it with Altman, how to feel it through Academy Award winning editor turned director Hal Ashby, and how to compose all of this from Ridley Scott. That's what I get knocked out about. You want to talk about not being in one role all the time. I'm in the role of being in this sneaky little guy in the background who's looking at everything that this director is doing and saying, my God, this guy's a genius. This guy is how they framed it. And look at this. These guys in the background and MASH. Look at that stuff, improvisational stuff they're doing. And look at over here, Alien, how they're addressing that indigestion scene, and how they watch how he did the whole thing, how he probably had a real cow image being brought in to spray that whole room. He was something else. That's the way he went. He said he went at it. He just went at it. He said he wanted to use Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the platform. The best way to scare them all over the place is don't let them see who this guy is or what this is. It's what you don't see that really scares the hell out of you. Our imaginations work a whole lot better than any screenwriter can do, or any director for that matter, unless the director knows, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let that character, that creature, be seen any more than necessary. Less is more. Less is more about all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of the old, the great old movies do that, and it's not something you see a lot anymore.
No, that's the storytelling is really, unfortunately, been put on the Hollywood had a tendency to put those on the side and go for the form that was making a lot of money.
So you mentioned MASH a few times. Kyle's father, Dean, would like to know why after the movie were you never, or maybe you were, asked to be on the show? Why were you never on the show?
When we were making the movie, Bob and I were in touch all the time. I wanted to fire him. He's telling me everything that's going on, so I'm well aware of this stuff. And I said, this is really going to be a big hit, and they just don't have any idea. And he says, nope, I can't explain it to him either. It's an inexplicable thing that happens with genius. And he was a genius. And I had I had my ears to that. And he said, I said, it's going to be so successful that sure as hell they're going to try to do a television series a couple of years from now. And I remember him looking at me for a moment and says, would you do the series? They did. I said, I'm so devoted to this that I know it's going to be a success. So it's a good point, actually, because I can't say I regret not having taken that role. That would have been 11 years I would have worked in that, and I'd be off on a yacht right now somewhere. But it really was one show I enjoyed watching, MASH. It was different, a whole different approach to it, but a smart approach to it. And I would never be in Turning Point, which is a classic ballet film, and I learned so much about great filmmaking, working with and Shirley MacLaine and quite a few other people, including Baryshnikov, watching the artistry of storytelling in movement only, which is what ballet is. That's really what an audience needs, is the lack of words and how the body can do in terms of telling you a story. So much I had to say about that, but I probably ran away from your question. I hope I answered it in some bloody way.
Absolutely.
But it's just, no regrets on any of this stuff. And they're just stories for me to tell. And I'm loaded with them. And they're all good because I'm alive and we're able to talk, right?
Absolutely.
We both know that we've worked on roofs.
We love to hear those stories, so please share more and more. I mean, when you think back on your entire career, is there like a single moment that pops up as maybe the fondest memory that you have in Hollywood?
Oh, yeah, I've been asked variations of that. That's a smart question because you word much better. But I really can't, because I was every intention was to be a writer-director. I wanted to be Orson Welles. I still do. I'm still striving for that, and anybody, I'm sorry, I get off on all those tangents because I got too much to tell, except those other stories which I wouldn't dare tell you.
Oh, we want those stories too. Tell us everything.
Yeah. No, we won't get into that one. God, there's too much to be amazed and honored and delighted and grateful for me to pick out one particular thing. It's like, what was my favorite role, for example? How could I I did the best I could in some cases. In other cases, I did not do very well at all. And I am the worst critic on myself, the toughest critic. So it was always about taking it all in. How much am I learning? What am I learning from these guys, these cats, these brilliant filmmakers I worked with? I listened to what they said to people. Herb Ross, who directed Steel Magnolias and the dance film Turning Point. He was quite a different guy, very much of a strict. He was a dance director, basically, and he just had a different approach. But I learned a lot from that because it's quite different than Bob Baldwin or Hal Ashby, and really just composed all of that stuff about movement, about depth, about field vision, and having he was the first guy to put smoke back in the background so you get depth and explain all this stuff to me. Moving little pieces of on the table that the head was on. Ian, unfortunately, Ian Hummel died not too long ago, but a lovely guy, his head is sticking up through the table, and he's sort of sitting on a little stool underneath it, which you don't see, but all this tapioca around him, which is sort of the electronic thing. And Ridley is changing all these. I'm looking through the lens because that's where he sees. Look through the lens, and he's moving these different objects. One on tobacco, tapioca might be a lot larger than the other tapioca, and it's better to put that one in background, height and all. That whole, and he's explaining all these little idiosyncrasies that really make up those brilliant films. It's that little touch of blue you put on the page, or that paint too. That little touch of blue that just doesn't match, and you got to put it over and put it. That yellow is so much better. It's that trial and error of doing it all, including myself coming in during some terrible scenes as an actor in any film. Name one, I'm terrible, but I did also a good one, and it was a good one that kept. So you just take the risk of trying out something different than you have been doing. And taking the risk of possibilities. I keep getting back to that because how does our imagination grow without taking those risks? Because the imagination informs our frame of reference, informs our intelligence. It's for our betterment that we try to do better every day. We may not always do what we want, but I hope the best gets to the audience that we're making this for.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Heck Johnson wants to know, what was it like working with Michael Parks on the China Lake murders? Do you have any Michael Parks stories?
Oh, yeah, that was a nice experience with him. Yeah, I don't remember the film that well, but I do. I always liked his acting. Yeah, he did a show with a motorcycle guy back whenever. And I hadn't seen him much because he's not easy to get along with. But I guess he died a couple of years ago. I thought he was one hell of an actor, difficult guy, and ultimately, you can be a terrific actor and remain a good person, not angry. Ego is a disease with people working in movies often. They want to be better. They want to do better. They want to be better. They want more notice. They want close-ups. And I just never have thought that way. I didn't care about that. It's enough to make a living. And I think he felt that way too about it. He was not an easy personality. He was somewhat angry, but he was able to utilize that effectively when he was an actor. He was very intense in a very quiet way. Like he's really looking at you and looking right through you. So he's gone. He never really was appreciated for his. He just stepped on his own foot.
Yeah, I read that I read that he was like sort of blacklisted from Hollywood a little bit, right? For one reason or another.
I don't know. It could be because he drank a lot, of course, but he was able to handle it. On that show, I think he had a motorcycle he'd ride to work and a motorcycle he'd ride home after having had a case of beer. Yeah. So
you're fascinating to me because you started in the industry and you said that you wanted to be a writer and you wanted to be a director, and then suddenly You're in a nude scene. Did you ever expect Big Bad Mama? You're going to be naked on the screen. I think that's fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, I took that one as a comedy, and everyone else was taking it seriously.
Were they really?
That's all I remember about that one. Yeah. Angie Dickinson. Yeah. They were very serious about it. You know, sometimes I'm not spoiling it, but it might cause a little trouble because I just find that funny when it's supposed to be tragic. You know?
I just watched Big Bad Mama the other day. Angie Dickinson was quite the thing back then.
Yeah.
All right, so
My
we
wife
don't want to take up too much more of your time here, Tom. We have one other question. Ron Pollock wants to know, how the hell did they rope you into Ted?
Oh, God. Well, the director just called me one day and said, would you do this? I said, sure. He just called and said, would you like to come over here and do this film? I said, sure. I love that. I love those guys involved in it.
Is there an actor that you wish you had worked with?
Oh, it's like picking out my favorite movie.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You know, you just can't go for one or the other. You know, I've seen some actors and I think, I've been in situations where I'm getting off camera dialogue and I'll see this other actor or lady. It's an ungender adjective, but an actor who is just doing such a great. I've just been bowled over by it. So I worked with Helen Mirren several years ago in Hungary and Max von Sydow, and to watch those people, I sometimes so. And others that I've worked with, but the same deal. I don't know why they came to mind. They did, but I was writing about them the other day. But you see a performance, and you know, you're just like, wow, this is dynamite. And I forget to deliver my lines to them, which is always very helpful. So it's that kind of observation of everything that's going on around me, that things I don't know about that I want to know about, that I've learned about and can utilize in terms of the future now still. In terms of Evergreen Channel, I can put more to that than other people know. And it's not about, obviously, we want to make money, but it's going to take a couple of years to build any profit on a company like this when it's brand new, because everybody says, like, hey, we've got horse and wagon, why do we need an automobile? Or we've got silent movies, why do we need talkies? You know, it's the same kind of dramatic change that we're in right now. And that's what I'm bringing to that. All of this stuff. There is no favorite except that I was fortunate enough to have this experience in total.
I just have one more fan question of my own, and then we'll wrap up. I know you're writing a memoir. If they were ever to turn your memoir into a movie, is there an actor of today that you would want to play Tom Skerritt?
I'm not in much of what I write about. When I write about all the stuff, a lot of it I shared with you. It's just all of it. This is all very obscure, but I mean, I have a lovely piece of rock. It's an architectural, very beautiful thing that I found in Sicily, in this new area where we were digging out, and we discovered there was a ruin of a village there with all this extraordinary work that the Greeks and the Romans did, where they built these amphitheaters or structures and buildings for their gods. And I brought this thing, I was able to pack it away in a suitcase. The thing is about 1.5 feet long, square, architecturally cut with bronze or something like that. It's beautifully done. And it's showing its age, of course, as I do show mine. But I brought it home, and it's now sitting next to my fireplace, and nobody pays any attention to it. I feel really guilty about it, that I didn't leave it where it belongs, a 2,000-year-old dust of a ruin, of a Greek ruin. And I know these are not very helpful answers, but it's the way I process is really the good fortune, because I've had the downside, but you know, in the end, it all balances out, and a river runs through it, and that's really what a river runs through it for me was. It's all who we are at any given time, and that we got this far, and you guys are able to do what you're doing now is sometimes, where we go and what we should appreciate more is just what we got. And how did we get here? And if we want to correct that, then you change your life. You go differently. You look at yourself differently. You look at everything out there differently. I hope all that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, you've given us a lot of great stuff. Thank you so much for your time. I know we kept you for almost an hour here. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. We're excited to promote your new project. We're gonna do all that with our fans, and yeah, I don't know how to thank you enough. This was great.
Well, that would be quite enough. Is really to really push what we're doing. The neighborhood, the Evergreen channel 284 on Stirr app.
Yeah,
is really worth watching. I mean, it's just, you look at that, and I can do that. Some woman up in Canada who she goes out and nips up certain trees, certain greeneries here and there, and she says, you don't need a kitchen to have a great meal. These things that we can all look at and say, wow, maybe I should learn how to pick up those fiddle ferns there. Those are really good in the salad. That we can survive somehow. We can survive even COVID if we just look at it the way we have to look at it. Put a mask on your face. I'm here alone, so excuse me that I'm not wearing a mask at the time. You get what I'm saying.
Sure,
it's just
of course.
You apply what you need to apply at any particular time and hope you live through it. And you come through that without, the Nietzsche thing, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's the life of it.
right. Well, putting out positive content, I think the world could definitely benefit from some positive content right now. So it sounds like you're doing some wonderful work there.
Yeah, we are. We really are.
Thank you, Tom. And tell everyone real quick where they can find you, Instagram, Twitter, where they can find Evergreen, all that good stuff.
Oh, Evergreen on the Stirr app, STIRR, capital. It's an app for free that Sinclair Broadcasting is giving away. So 284 is the channel number. And you will be enjoying yourself.
Look forward to checking it out, Tom. And thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this with us.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. I'm going to go watch some football now.
All right.
Go Hawks!